team, we're ready to go, right? Yeah? Okay. I know everyone's very busy today. Okay. So our microphones are on. Let me open that for you.
No, I'm okay. Don't do that. Don't waste plastic. Sorry.
Well, good morning, everyone. Salamat pagi semua. Thank you very much for coming. It's great to see such a good turnout. Special thanks to our journalists joining from across the country via Zoom from places including Palembang, Batam, Solo, Pontianak, Manado, Gorontalo, just to name a few. It's great to see everyone participating today. This event is on the record. Ambassador Lockdear will open with some brief remarks, and then I will moderate a brief question and answer session. And so with that, I turn it over to Ambassador Lockdear.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you all for coming to the embassy, and welcome to all who are online. Thank you for joining us. I'm happy to do this press conference because we have passed an important milestone in the partnership between the United States and Indonesia. The recent visit of Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto to Washington, D.C., where he had positive meetings with U.S. President Joe Biden, as well as Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. I traveled back to Washington and joined many of the president's meetings, so I've returned and I am somewhat over the jet lag. The visit underscored our 75 years of strong diplomatic relations and our enduring partnership built on shared values, common priorities for the prosperity and development of our countries and peoples, and a joint commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific based on international law. As we celebrate this 75th anniversary, our strong ties continue to deepen. 1 year ago, we elevated our bilateral relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership, institutionalizing our efforts to address regional and global challenges and fostering new opportunities for expanded cooperation. Since that time, the people of the United States and Indonesia, the world's second and third largest democracies, have voted to elect new leaders. In the United States, President Biden has assured President-elect Trump that the current administration will work to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition. Over decades and across presidential administrations, the U.S.-Indonesia partnership has continued to grow stronger. President Prabowo's recent visit offered our governments an opportunity to recommit to the pledge to broaden and deepen our relationship through the comprehensive strategic partnerships. During their meeting in Washington, Presidents Biden and Prabowo discussed ways to advance our collaboration, including through closer economic ties, enhanced security cooperation, and cooperation on regional and global issues. Both leaders reaffirmed their commitment to promoting democracy, pluralism, rule of law, and a stable and open international system, values that unite our two countries. They underscored the importance of continuing to advance an open, transparent, and inclusive Indo-Pacific, with ASEAN at the center of this vision. President Biden reaffirmed our strong support for Indonesia's efforts toward an expedited accession to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, which will facilitate Indonesia's path to stronger economic growth. Both leaders also emphasized the importance of addressing global challenges like climate change, sustainable agriculture, and renewable energy transitions. The leaders also committed to our joint efforts to enhance security cooperation with a mutual goal of fostering peace and stability in Southeast Asia. With Indonesia's successful hosting of the 2024 Super Garuda Shield exercise, both sides recognize the growing importance of our defense cooperation and the role it plays in enhancing collective security in an increasingly complex global landscape. Both leaders also emphasized the importance of investing in a healthy society. The United States has invested over $1.1 billion in Indonesia's health systems, including $58.9 million in just the past year. Our successful health partnership continues to enhance disease outbreak monitoring, strengthen health security, improve TB detection and clinical treatments, and modernize health information systems. For decades, the United States has partnered with Indonesia to develop Indonesia's infrastructure, health systems, and economy. A new $649 million grant from the U.S. Millennium Challenge Corporation, or MCC, announced earlier this year will double U.S. development assistance to Indonesia over the next 5 years, augmenting development assistance from the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, of approximately $130 million annually. The new MCC Compact II is intended to improve access to infrastructure financing, particularly transport and logistics infrastructure, and support for women-owned small businesses. The total is close to $700 million over 5 years when you include the $49 million co-invested from the government of Indonesia. I would also like to take this opportunity to note that while we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of bilateral relations, we are also remembering the 20th anniversary of the tragic tsunami that devastated coastal communities across the Indian Ocean region, including Aceh province in Indonesia. In response, the United States mobilized over $500 million in humanitarian aid and recovery efforts to support Indonesia, benefiting over 580,000 people. The United States government and American civil society organizations work closely with the Indonesian government and the people of Aceh and Sumatra. Together, we learned from the response and continue to work cooperatively on disaster preparedness and response in the region and globally. I would like to express appreciation to all the Indonesians and Americans who heroically responded to the 2004 tsunami. In closing, I would like to underscore that President Prabowo's recent visit highlights the trust and mutual respect between our two countries and underscores the shared values and interests that brought us together as friends 75 years ago and will sustain our partnership for the next 75 years and beyond. We are looking forward to concluding our year-long celebration of the 75th anniversary with a party. So please stay tuned for further updates. It will involve chocolate cake, so I'm told. Thank you. We are also excited to announce new initiatives that will further strengthen our people-to-people ties, including the opening of an American Corner in Makassar in January or February of 2025. With the Makassar American Corner, we will have 12 American Corners across Indonesia. This year, we also opened 2 new Education USA centers, increasing the total to 15, to provide Indonesian young people free educational advising on study in the United States. And finally, I'd like to note the ongoing visit to Indonesia from our Undersecretary of Commerce for International Trade, Marissa Largo, who is here leading a trade mission of 12 U.S. companies that are leaders in innovative technologies for urban infrastructure development, an example of the strong and growing collaboration between the United States and Indonesia in digital transformation and infrastructure development. Yesterday, after Jakarta meetings, Undersecretary Lago and members of the trade delegation traveled to Nusantara to inaugurate a U.S.-funded pilot command center for managing smart city infrastructure. Undersecretary Lago's visit reaffirms the U.S. commitment to drive sustainable and resilient economic development in Indonesia and across the Indo-Pacific region. Thank you very much for listening, and now I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ambassador. So we're going to move to the Q&A portion of today's event. We gathered, or we sought topics and questions from all of you before we came and tried to deconflict those. So I'm going to call on journalists one by one to ask their questions. We'd like to start today with Reno from Business Indonesia. Could you ask your question? Thank you.
Hello. My question is, at COP29, Indonesia's representatives mentioned the need for approximately 235 billion in investment to develop an additional 100 gigawatts of electricity capacity using renewable energy. How interested is the U.S. in participating in this plan, and have any U.S. companies expressed interest in this project? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have not yet had the opportunity to meet with Indonesia's delegates who went to COP29. But like you, I have seen the press statements and discussion publicly about Indonesia's perspective on renewable energy transition. The U.S. for over the last 2 years has been working with Indonesia on renewable energy transition. As you all are well aware, through the JETP, while working with our international partners group. Also, our USAID has worked a longer time with different players, including PLN, in terms of the energy grid. So I think the U.S. is very committed to supporting and working with Indonesia on the transition to more renewable energy. I have met with many U.S. companies who are also interested in investing and supporting Indonesia's expansion of renewable energy. So I think there is a lot of interest, and how to move forward will require the private sector for such a large commitment. So I'm very pleased to have seen that, and I'm very pleased we'll be working together on those sets of issues.
Thanks, Ambassador. Could we move to Haidar from TV1? I think you have a question.
Okay, thank you, madam, for the opportunity. So I wanna ask some question. First of all, as we know, Indonesia is reportedly set to join the bridge. Does President Joe Biden have any concern regarding this that he might convey during his meeting with the President Prabowo Subianto a couple days ago? And also, what is the U.S. government response to this situation, considering Indonesia is an important economic partner for the United States? Thank you, madam.
So I cannot speak on, so let me say, the United States position on Indonesia joining the BRICS, or possibly joining the BRICS, the U.S. position is this is a decision for Indonesia, for the Indonesian government and people to make. And we have many partners and friends who are already members of the BRICS. And so individual countries will have to make their own decision, and we respect that. At the same time, I would note that we work with Indonesia across many multilateral organizations. Just most recently, the most highlighted, of course, are APEC and the G20. And we work with Indonesia in ASEAN. We work at all the UN agencies, the Human Rights Council when Indonesia is serving on the Council, UN Security Council when Indonesia has been a member. So we work across the multilateral organizations. So, and we welcome Indonesia's collaboration with us.
Thank you. For our third question, could we turn to Kompas and Samsul?
Thank you, Ambassador, for inviting us and for the explanation. I have one question. In the joint statement from two leaders, US and Indonesia, it's mentioned that the leaders acknowledge the essential role of diverse and resilient mineral supply chains to bolster manufacturing sector and economic growth in both nations. And also there has been a commitment from both leaders to develop a critical mineral supply chain in both countries for a mutually beneficial partnership. And could you please elaborate more on that matter? Because with regard that Indonesia has vast resources of critical minerals and some of the largest mineral resources, I think. Washington DC a few weeks ago, that U.S. would probably plan to diversify its supply chain in those minerals will result in concrete investment agreements. Thank you.
So I think you have correctly stated that both countries and both governments have been discussing and working together on issues related to critical minerals supply chains and increasing the transparency and the diversity within the supply chains across many different minerals. Though, of course, in Indonesia, we often talk about nickel, but there are others that both Indonesia has and also needs as we go through transition, for example, into renewable energy. So I think both sides continue to discuss this matter intensively. It is very complex. The supply chain is very broad, and there are so many different actors along the chain and different aspects of the work. I think there's a commitment in both governments to continue to work together to expand transparency and diverse supply options. I also just note we are about to go into a transition in Washington. But I think that this work will continue because it's very important to both economies and to the growth of both economies, and particularly in terms of new technologies, digital, renewable. So I think we will continue this work going forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Could we turn to Tempo and Severo?
Okay, good morning, Ms. Ambassador, Ms. Kamala Shirin. Thank you for your explanation. Thank you for the opportunity. Maybe I want to ask you about the South China Sea. When the President Prabowo met between Indonesia and China, they discussed overlapping areas in the South China Sea. We both know that Indonesia and United States agree about the UNCLOS, but...
Thank you for your question. So President Biden and other senior officials in Washington committed to President Prabowo and to Indonesia that we support a free and open Indo-Pacific, and we support Indonesia's sovereignty over its EEZ. And that these discussions have to fall within the UNCLOS and international law framework. And the United States continues to strongly support all discussions should be, whether it is with Indonesia or Indonesia's neighbors, have to be based on UNCLOS and international law. And that is our commitment to Indonesia. Thank you.
Thanks, Ambassador. We also wanted to make sure that our Zoom participants...
We support Indonesia's expedited accession into the OECD. We believe through the various reforms that Indonesia would have to take, both in terms of law and regulatory systems and economy, that there will be an opportunity for increased growth and increased economic activity which is one of the objectives of the new Prabowo administration, to move to 8% growth. And that there are many, and I have met with many private sector U.S. companies who are very interested in investing in Indonesia, and I believe that accession to the OECD or even steps toward that accession would support a much greater investment from U.S. firms and from other foreign direct investment to Indonesia, which will help grow Indonesia's economy. And also, I would like to add, just not growing in percent, but also increasing the number of high-quality jobs that would be available to Indonesians and Indonesian youth. So I think the benefits will be great for Indonesian people.
Thank you, Ambassador. And for our last question, could we turn to Teguh from Republica? There you are.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ambassador. Good morning, everyone. As the relationship between Indonesia and the United States under the both presidents, and what the challenge that we will face for the country.
I have to say that we have a President-elect Trump. On noon, on January 20th, he will be sworn in as our new president. I am careful not to comment on his future presidency because I currently represent President Biden. But I will answer your question because I have seen many transitions over my 33 years as a career diplomat for the United States. And one of the things we look for is what are the foundational or fundamental interests between Indonesia and the United States. Those interests are actually very clear and long-standing, and how we work together is very clear. And I think those will be sustained, whether it's economic prosperity and development, increased trade and investment, public health concerns, because public health affects all of us. I think the experience of COVID taught us again that we are not alone when we have a public health crisis. No country stands alone. People-to-people engagement, young people studying in the United States, research, scientific research, renewable energy, energy security, something that President Prabowo has very much focused on. So I could keep going, and these are fundamental interests between our two countries and peoples, and they will sustain us into the political transition here in Indonesia and in the United States. Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please.
So I'd like to thank all the journalists in the room, and I would like to warn you that I read you and I watch you. And I appreciate your work. I appreciate your importance as journalists for Indonesia and for this ambassador. Occasionally, I will come in and harass people in this embassy saying, this was reporting this morning while I was drinking my cappuccino. What does it mean? What do we think is going on? So I just want to express my appreciation to journalists in Indonesia for their excellent work and for their education to me as the U.S. ambassador about what's important to Indonesian people and what's happening in the world of Indonesia every day. So thank you very much. I admit that my Bahasa Indonesia needs to improve so I can follow, what is the tempo blog that everyone, they're yelling at each other? Oh. Yeah, that's my favorite, because I spend time watching it, and eventually I get so humiliated that I'm guessing at what they're discussing. Could you advise them to please use less colloquial slang for this ambassador? I'd really appreciate that.
More slowly, please.
Yeah, speak more slowly. But I enjoy making up what they're talking about sometimes. Oh, I think they're talking about, and so I'm guessing I'm totally wrong, but it's sort of, so thank you all for what you do every day. It's very much appreciated.
That's a great way to end. Thank you, Ambassador, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and hopefully you found this useful. We hope to do more of these in the future. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you all. Take care. Have a good Wednesday. Remember, chocolate cake soon.